it is absolutely key to enabling future economic growth. It's critical to our economic productivity, better public services, and also lifting incomes. We've already announced that $7 billion worth of infrastructure projects will get underway before Christmas. Those are new roads, classrooms and hospital buildings, and these projects will create thousands of jobs and enable both urban and regional growth. Now, alongside the big infrastructure jobs is the important task of getting those jobs done easier and quicker. We want building them to be faster by cutting red tape. Fast Track is already proving its worth, and already 3 projects have received Fast Track approval. Prioritising a new wharf and berths at the ports of Auckland and housing developments at Maitahi Village in Nelson and also Milldale in Auckland are creating jobs, growth and momentum in the construction sector. We are taking away the barriers and the red tape that have traditionally hamstrung New Zealand's progress with new RMA legislation due in the House by the end of this year. And today we're announcing the next stage in building our roads of national significance. The government, as you know, has announced 17 roads of national significance. These are the highways that will make a real difference in people's lives. It is a huge investment in New Zealand's future, and we make no apology for doing so. This investment will make Kiwis' lives easier, whether by moving people and goods more quickly and reducing travel times, or by making our roads safer and more resilient with less road closures, and by unlocking future growth and new housing. The bottom line is that we need to act now to future-proof this country's infrastructure. Yes, we are coming out of challenging financial times, but we are starting to see some positive signs in our economic recovery. Tourism numbers are up 34% since 2023, and our agriculture sector is also performing well. The recent 50% interest rate cut will also provide further support for households, with the cost of servicing a typical $500,000 mortgage now around $400 a fortnight less than it was in the middle of last year. This country needs to be ready for the good times, and we need to be building now to meet the demands of the future. We want to shape our recovery, not just observe it. Our roads of national significance, therefore, will allow the wheels of industry to get business done more efficiently, and we intend to do all that we can to expedite that. And with that, I'll pass over to Chris to provide some further details.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Today, I'm laying out the next steps in the government's Roads of National Significance program. As the Prime Minister says, we're committed to building a long-term transport infrastructure pipeline to address New Zealand's infrastructure deficit. Building infrastructure supports economic growth, creates jobs and opportunities for New Zealanders. And to help government with funding decisions and the construction sector with workforce planning decisions, it's important we have a long-term pipeline of projects that are credible, carefully planned and designed and consented. The Roads of National Significance program is a really important part of this pipeline, and the NZTA has been working really hard over the last couple of years to get these projects ready for delivery. Today is a significant day. The Transport Agency Board has now endorsed investment cases for all of the roads of national significance, with the most recent endorsements including sections 2 and 3 of the Northland Expressway, the East-West link in Auckland that connects State Highway 20 and State Highway 1, the Hamilton Southern Links project, Petone to Granada and the Cross Valley Link connecting State Highway 2 and State Highway 1, State Highway Wellington improvements including a second Mount Victoria tunnel and a second terrace tunnel, the Hope Bypass project in Nelson. The investment case summaries have been published on the New Zealand Transport Agency website. We're also announcing combined funding of nearly $1.2 billion to move these roads to the next stage of development. There's $675 million to progress consenting, design, route protection, site investigations and some early works. You can't just turn up and build a road tomorrow. Actually, it takes some time, and designations and consenting, route protection, site investigations are all a really important part of that. There's also $515 million expected to be used from property funding to enable local property acquisition to get underway on these projects. The approval of funding by the board and the investment cases ensures progress on these projects can continue. It is important we have a clear plan for delivery, including well-reasoned prioritisation to inform the order with which these roads will be funded and ultimately delivered. And we'll have more to say about that in coming months. But today is all about completing all of the investment cases for the roads, unlocking the potential to start those projects in due course with the commitment of $1.2 billion or so of funding, And as I say, building that long-term transport infrastructure pipeline to build jobs and growth for the long term. Thank you, PM.
Well, thanks, Chris. Look, just before we get to questions, this week, obviously Wednesday is a Members' Day. Thursday, the funeral of Jim Bolger is being held at 11 a.m. At Our Lady of Kapiti Catholic Church in Parapara Umu, and Chris is actually going to ask the Business Committee to consider delaying the start of question time to 3 p.m, so as many people can attend as possible. With that, I guess Chris and I are happy to take your questions. Can we focus first and foremost on this announcement, and then we'll come to other general questions of the day?
Do you have a particular order that you want to see these roads? What's the sort of first priority?
So those will be the things that we weigh up over the next couple of months. It is a complex picture between deliverability, market capacity, ensuring a regional spread. Some projects, frankly, are going to be quicker to bring to market than others. Take, for example, the alternative state highway project in Auckland. That's frankly a project that's probably a bit more for the longer term, and there are other projects that are more construction ready. So we're just going to be weighing up construction readiness, the ability to deliver, funding, getting a regional spread around the place as well. Just want to take a bit of time to get the prioritisation order in place. But the point is, all of the projects have gone through the investment case process, and they all have good benefit cost ratios that justify the investment.
When the East-West link was announced, I think it was Stephen Joyce, he announced it, I think it was 2014 or something like that. It was going to be the most expensive road per kilometre that New Zealand's ever built, and it wasn't proceeded. What's changed on that one?
The project's been redesigned to some extent. You can have a look at exactly how that's happened. The East-West link is actually an example of how our planning laws and our resource management laws have stymied growth. That project has been tied up in the courts for year after year after year, and is actually a classic example of how the RMA has got in the way of progress. It is an expensive project, but if you look at the investment case, it's got a benefit cost from memory of over 3. That is the most, that economic hub in Penrose and the surrounding area is a massive freight and logistics hub. It's an incredibly important part of Auckland. In fact, it's an incredibly important part of the national economy. And the idea that basically the trucks trundle from State Highway 1 to State Highway 20 along a local road, clogging up the traffic for everyone else who's just living in the area or trying to get around the place is frankly nuts. And the idea that we need to connect State Highway 1 and 20, I don't think anyone disagrees with. The debate has been about the extent of it and the exact route and all of that, and so NZTA has gone away and done quite a bit of work on that, and that is a really important project for Auckland and in fact for New Zealand.
Just want to check, this isn't new funding, this is all budgeted for, you've just decided today where you're going to spend it?
It's from the Transport Agency. So it's ultimately paid for by road user charges and petrol tax, which is hypothecated. It's new funding that the Transport Agency Board has committed to, that they will be spending over the next months and years. Well, it's from the National Land Transport Fund, yes.
And from an economic point of view, how much do you see this contributing to economic growth?
Well, I mean, there's there's some detail provided around each of the individual 17 projects, but I'd be very struck reading through. It's 13 minutes off of commute time here. It's actually a better, more resilient road. That, if you think about the Brenderwins, for example, which is just often in road closures for good parts of the year, the resilience of those roads being created. So for each of them, it's a different sort of mix of benefits. For commuter time, for safety, for road resilience. And obviously that has huge economic benefits. We know that if we want to lift the collective living standards of this country, there's 5 things we have to do. One is we have to get a world-class education system in place. We have to have more technology innovation. We need to get rid of red tape. We need to have doubling of trade and investment. And importantly, we need to have modern, reliable infrastructure. And we can do those 5 things as part of our long-term plan. That's what we're working towards, because that's what will make New Zealand, much, much better economically.
Will we learn whether the roads are cultural?
The starting point for all of the roads, as per the government policy statement on transport, is that roads will be tolled. Now, the Transport Agency goes through a process around working out exactly how the road will be tolled and making a recommendation to the government, to me, which is ultimately made by Cabinet. But the starting point is that we will toll the roads, and the reason for that is that, A, it brings forward the investment, so it provides a revenue source, a revenue stream that you wouldn't otherwise get, and B, it provides an ongoing revenue stream for the maintenance and the ongoing operations of the roads as well. And I think, we've already made decisions to toll the Otaki to North Levin road. The construction has started on that already. We've made decisions to toll the new Penlink road, which is north of Auckland, and we've made decisions to toll Tauranga Northern Link, or Takatimu Northern Link as it's now called, stages 1 and 2 as well. So we've already made those decisions, and we're consulting on tolling the Belfast to Pegasus road down south as well. So I think people, if you look at the Belfast debate, there's been a bit of local opposition to it, including by the Mayor. But my sense is, though, most people, once they realise if you don't toll things, the road is delayed or doesn't happen at all, people say, well, just bring the tolling forward, thanks, we'd just rather pay a bit extra to drive on the road. And that's our starting point, and that's what we're doing.
What about a second mountain tunnel, though? Does it make sense to toll a tunnel in the middle of Wellington, given it's such a short span and it's such a key sort of way for people to move through?
Yeah, so the Transport Agency will be considering that, but it's not just a second Mount Victoria tunnel. So I want to stress that the project that's been endorsed by the board is what's now called State Highway 1 Wellington Improvements. So it's a duplicate terrace tunnel. It's 3-laning down Vivian Street. So no longer, if the project goes ahead, no longer will you be able to park on Vivian Street, which frankly I think is ridiculous. So it will be a road, which is actually what it should be. Then it will be grade separation, which has been widely discussed over many years at the Basin Reserve, and then it will be a duplicate Mount Victoria tunnel. So it's actually a package, and the reason why it's a package is that you could do the Mount Vic tunnel, but you just shift the problem. You could do the terrace tunnel, but you just shift the problem. You've actually got to do the whole lot. And before anyone asks, yes, there is provision for walking and cycling through the second Mount Victoria tunnel. So I'm looking forward to Julianne Genter's strong tweet and endorsement of this very important project.
Let it go, let it go.
So that will be exactly what is studied by the Transport Agency when it comes to when they make their recommendation to us. But as I say, the starting point for all the roads is the consideration of tolling. The next step is to look at exactly what the traffic flows will be as part of that. And then the other thing I would say about Wellington is you've got the other debate around congestion pricing or a cordon charge as well. We're also progressing time of use pricing. So it may be that those conversations merge together at some point, or it may not be. Let's just wait and see where we get to. Well, actually, the majority of the people who will be hit by this will be people in my electorate of Lower Hutt, who currently drive to and from the airport or go to the eastern suburbs of Wellington. And, if indeed we did toll it or looked at some congestion price, we'd be asking them to, pay a little bit extra. That will be a challenging conversation, I've no doubt about that. However, if you also said to people on the Hutt Valley and Lower Hutt and Upper Hutt and frankly Porirua as well, if you said to them, you no longer will have to wait for 15 minutes at the terrace on-ramp in the morning, and you can just go straight through, and then no longer wait for 20 minutes to get to the eastern suburbs because you've got to drive through a tunnel that was built in 1931 and takes 40,000 vehicle movements per day and hasn't been added to in the last 93 years. I think people would say, well, if it shaves 15 minutes off my commute in the morning, yeah, I'm prepared to pay a little bit of extra money for that. I think many people in the Hutt Valley and Porirua would say that. So we're going to have that's a conversation for another day. But I think
the bigger point is that we want to get infrastructure built, and we keep talking about things like we have done for decades now about roads we're gonna one day build, or otherwise we actually find a new funding and financing way to actually pull that investment forward, get that road built now. It's going to be cheaper to build it today than it will be tomorrow.
That's right.
Partner with the right people and the right financing and funding mechanisms in order to get that infrastructure there, so that people get the benefit of that road, whether it's economic, social, or arguably environmental benefits of it. So, this is how it's done in other modern countries all around the world, has been for many, many years. I lived in Sydney in the mid-90s. I can tell you, as they put tolls in across the city in order to get infrastructure built quicker and roads built faster, that was well understood and well appreciated.
Do you expect there'll be bipartisan support for all these projects, or could Labor come in and overturn everything?
Well, ultimately that's over to them. We are putting forward the government's plan for the projects that we want to build. In due course, we will publish our prioritisation exercise of the projects that we want to see built and the rough order in which we want to see them built. I can't control the Labor Party, God knows. What I can control, or what the government can control, is what government policy is. And these projects are very important for New Zealand's future.
I think, Jamie, I'll just say, sorry, just Jamie on that one. I mean, what's interesting to me is the Labor Party can't even agree a position on public-private partnerships. Well, Jacinta Allen and Chris Minns from the Labor Party in New South Wales and Victoria, and the Labor Party for the last 30 years in Australia, have understood what public-private partnerships are and how they work. Barbara Edmonds can write a lovely forward in our document about public-private partnerships, and then it's undone by Karen McAnulty and Megan Woods the next day, and then by Chris Hipkins again. So, we will keep reaching out. The more that we can actually put infrastructure projects into, a 30-year pipeline where we're actually not discussing the actual projects, we're just discussing how we might fund them, and the relative priority of them remains unchanged and outside the political process. I think that's all good stuff.
On these projects, has there been any bipartisan discussions? Because you've spoken about having a bipartisan approach to infrastructure.
Yeah, I've talked about having a bipartisan approach to the government's 30-year plan, for example, which a draft has been published, and we've had some meetings about between the government and the opposition. But in relation to these projects, no.
Have you met with Labor's transport spokesperson since becoming the transport minister?
I've had some phone calls with them, and I've had some sort of, I would say, informal meetings. I haven't had a formal meeting with them, no.
Prime Minister, am I good to move on?
Yeah, let's just get Claudia.
35. Are there unique challenges around that particular stretch of highway, why it's not prioritised in your list of roads of significance, given the environmental impacts? I mean, there are other challenges there. So is there an indication for whānau as to when that will be in your priority?
State Highway 35 up on the east coast.
Yeah.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, Gisborne.
Yeah, it's not.
Tairāwhiti.
Yeah, Tairāwhiti. It's not named. I mean, the announcement today is about the roads of national significance, of which that is not one. But very aware of the challenges there. In fact, there is funding from Budget 2025 North Island for severe weather events, in which I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure there's some money going towards that project.
And so with that in mind, though, State
Hang on, guys.
35, it is the only tranche of road or stretch of road that goes into some of the most significant tourism spots within Te Tairāwhiti. So why is it not identified as a road of significance to be able to be?
It's not that it's not an unimportant road, it's just that not everything can be a road of national significance, and these are the 17 we've chosen. But it's not to say it's not unimportant.
Labor's transport spokesperson's been reported in the past as saying, I fear pigs will fly before National has spades in the ground on this project, referring to the second Big Tunnel. Are pigs going to fly?
Well, I'll just say that's a bit rich coming from Labor, isn't it? These are the same clowns that actually said they announced new projects in 2018, Kapiti and, north of Levin, then actually cancelled in 2018, re-announced in 2020, didn't do anything about it. Melling, announced in 2018, cancelled in 2020, didn't do anything about it. We're getting on and doing it. So, our legacy of actually getting stuff done is really important. These are the same clowns that actually spent, $300 million on a 6-year project to work out where Auckland Light Rail may possibly go, and not a single metre has happened. Well, in Montreal, they started a project a year later and they delivered it within 5 years, and people are using that light rail system. This is the same same outfit that actually put in place, let's get Wellington moving, and what do we get? One very expensive pedestrian crossing, maybe, if we're lucky. So, I mean, no disrespect, but these guys have no ideas, no track record of delivery whatsoever. So, they can say whatever the hell they want, but, really we're not that interested.
There's $172 million for property acquisition and $185 million for consents, design, early works development for the State Highway 1 Wellington project. So within the next year, you will see spades in the ground on that project.
What do you make it be well funded by then?
Well, I mean, totally underwhelming. Pretty classic Labor, isn't it? No detail, no costings. I think 3 of the 12 pages I saw were pictures and just a whole bunch of buzzwords and jargon and nothing, actually no detail on it. Can't list the companies for commercial reasons, apparently. Market sensitive reasons, what a load of rubbish. So, I mean, honestly, no detail, no costings, and frankly, if we'd dished something up like that, we would have been crucified for that.
Prime Minister, Labor's also criticised your government for the rise in inflation. They're saying that you promised that inflation would go down while it's going up. What's your response to that?
Well, inflation is at 3%. It's within the band of the Reserve Bank. Under Labor, it was at 7.3%. So we have brought inflation down in just under 18 months, or 18 months, 2 years, and that's making a big difference. If you care about working people and who are doing it really tough, you actually manage an economy well, and you make sure you get spending under control, so you get inflation under control, so you get interest rates down. That's exactly the path that we've been putting in place. So, they wrecked the economy economy, let's be clear. They just spent more, taxed more, borrowed more, and they'll continue to do more of that going forward. But that is what caused the pain and suffering that New Zealanders are experiencing up and down this country.
Just back on Labour's policy, what sort of impact do you think it would have if the dividends of, for example, state-owned enterprises was going towards this fund rather than into the general?
Well, there was no. I just had a very cursory look on it as I was on my way down. But I mean, like, there was no numbers in the document whatsoever. There wasn't even the $200 million seed money that I understood Barbara Edmonds talked about in the briefing. But if you look at it over the last 3 years, there's anywhere from $600 to $800 million worth of dividends. Well, that money's actually used to pay for health and education. So where's that going to come from? So where's the costing for that? What is the implication of that on the delivery of the deficit, for example? So where's the thinking behind it all? There is no detail, there is no costings, it's just classic Labour. So,
position more generally just on the idea of having a separate independent fund that is investing in New Zealand businesses?
But someone said to me, it's like the Temasek model. It's nothing like the Temasek model. Temasek can actually trade assets in and out. They can recycle assets. They can actually invest overseas. They can do a bunch of things. It's got nothing to do with that. So it just smacked a little bit of what we saw in Health New Zealand. Let's take 20 DHBs, throw another 2,500 managers over the top, call it a wrapper called Health New Zealand, and actually not really make it work. I mean, the key issue here is making. They've got no details. And as I said to you, after 2 years in opposition, this is your first outing. Honestly, if we had done that, we would have been crucified, absolutely crucified without showing up with numbers. We showed up with a tax plan fully costed, out from an election. So I just think, look, just more of the same of what we've seen, whole bunch of bumper stickers and buzzwords, no detail, no numbers, and as a result, nothing's going to happen. Sorry, mate? Yes. Sorry, Sean.
On Jim Bolger, is that a state funeral on Thursday? What's the kind of protocol around that?
Yeah, it's what's actually Sean called an official funeral, as I understand it. So essentially, it's some government support acknowledging there's probably going to be 1,000 people that will be coming to the funeral. So we work with the family on funeral arrangements there. This will be it's what he wanted, which is at his local Catholic church in Paraparaumu, and the family have been very generous in acknowledging there will be people that want to come and pay their respects to Jim, and as a result, they've encompassed it all into one farewell.
And you'll be going, obviously?
Yes, I will be going. Yeah, looking forward to it. I mean, he was someone I think that sort of left quite a legacy around economic, social, and constitutional change. If you think about, inheriting a hell of a mess and cleaning that up through the 90s, economically it was a very challenging time for New Zealand. Certainly the work that he did repositioning New Zealand into Asia, the work he did on treaty settlements, and ultimately also sort of MMP being introduced, are pretty big issues. And I think, he actually led in very difficult times, doing the right things, as I said, for the right reasons at the right time. I didn't know him super well, but I got to know him a little bit before I came to politics. And then, when I was in opposition and in government, he would be at different events, and we'd have often the odd phone call. But I remember being out with him at a bar, as I said before, in Waikanae, and this guy loved politics, he loved people. And so even at 87 years old, he was out there with me working the bar.
One other question that you discussed this morning with Paul Goldsmith, I don't know, what is a broadcaster?
Yeah, well, you've obviously right in the middle of this one, because the issue is, I think the situation raises some pretty good questions, and I've got a lot of sympathy about it being overreach and an impingement on free speech. So I think the issue for us is, let's actually see where Goldsmith gets to with a review of it all. But we know that this area. Well, let's see where he gets to, because I know he wants to think about it a little bit. But I just say to you that we know that regulation in this area is incredibly difficult. If you're seriously going to tell me you're going to go off and regulate and legislate for every social media piece and online, we know it's a difficult environment, as we saw with the Fair Digital Bargaining Bill and other things. So I just say to you, I think I've got some sympathy. It's a bit of an overreach.
Is there any point in even having a BSA anymore?
Sorry?
Is there any point in even having a BSA anymore?
I don't know. Those are things that Goldsmith can look at, but I think our view is that there is a role for it to play, but whether it's going outside its terms, that's something that he'll look at.
Is it really fair to other broadcasters, though? Is it really fair to other broadcasters if they have to maintain
existing broadcasters?
Existing broadcasters have to maintain BSA objectivity standards. They do a lot of work, spend lots of legal money responding to BSA complaints. The broadcasters who don't happen to use frequencies or not, radio frequencies or TV aren't.
I just think it's a really complex area and very difficult area to regulate, as we've seen on things like the Fair Digital Bargaining Bill. It all sounds very simple at the beginning, and you get into it very quickly, and it's very difficult. I think it actually, there is a risk that it is overreaching and impinging on free speech. And so, let's see where Goldsmith gets to on it. He'll have a good look at it, but I'm just highlighting that I've got some sympathy for it. I think it's difficult, and let's see where they get to. Sorry.
I'm trusting with essentially today IRD's annual report that showed that IRD very impressive returned $11.81 for every dollar spent on enforcement.
Yep.
But I know there are a lot of businesses at the moment who feel like IRD has been taking a very hardline approach at a time when many are doing it tough. What do you sort of say to that?
Well, again, our focus here is, we deliberately put money in from day one to make sure that IRD had good enforcement resources. It's important that our tax system is upheld. It's important that there is good enforcement. There have been times through COVID and other periods where there's been, some liberation and relaxation, understandably so, often when businesses have had zero revenue, for example. But it's quite right that we actually make sure our tax system is enforced, and every dollar we put in there, it's generating a good return, and I think that's entirely appropriate.
Just so clear though, you're comfortable with the approach that Labor took when it relaxed enforcement during the pandemic?
No, I'm comfortable with the fact that we're putting more money in, deliberately so, as a conscious decision to make sure that IRD is enforcing our laws, our tax laws, and making sure that it is people are paying their fair share of tax, as they should.
Is the right decision though? I mean, we've seen that the debts owed to IRD's ballooned in recent years. A lot of that's linked to the stuff that the pandemic. Did you think that was the right decision?
Well, again, I'm not interested in the past. I'm interested in right now. And my view, very clearly, I've directed very strongly Simon Watts and others to put money into IRD in order to make sure that we are actually enforcing our tax laws. When you have a tax system and laws are not respected and payments are not made, and we want to make sure there's no evasion, then that's important that we actually have a good, strong enforcement investment to do so.
One of the two questions on different things. First is regarding inflation. What did you make of the impact of council rates on the inflation creeping up to 3%?
Well, it's classic councils. They've got to focus on the things that matter most to their ratepayers, not all the extras. Spending $2.5 million on a public toilet block with a light show is not a good use of money. And punters are paying, the public are paying for it. And that's unfair and it's unacceptable. So councils, you saw mayors lose their jobs because they actually had high rates. Councils need to be very, very focused on doing the basics brilliantly. No different from what we've been trying to do here in central government. We expect our local government to do exactly the same.
And just back on the fund and turn in line with JB's questions earlier, just
about the what, mate?
The future fund, regarding the substantiveness of the policy. New Zealand First put out a similar idea about it a year ago. This is your coalition partner who clearly thinks that the idea has some principle, some merits to it. I guess I'm just wondering about your personal perspective.
Well, I think what we've got here is a slogan. I don't think we have an idea. I don't think we have any detail and no costings. So, I just encourage you, read through the 10 or 12 pages, and if you can work out what the hell they're talking about, good luck. But I'm just saying to you, that is just classic Labor. How do you spend 2 years in opposition? Your first policy out the gate is this. And as I said, man, if I dished this up to you guys or to the country, we would have been crucified for it. But no numbers, no detail, classic Labor. Sorry? No, look, I expect parties to take their policies to the election, as they will next year, and compete strongly and try and get support for their respective policies amongst their own constituencies. It's not something we've talked through.
Just you've been asked a lot about the primacy.
Sorry.
Just on conversations with Peters, have you spoken to him about his comments on Fonterra?
No, I don't need to. No, I mean, we don't need politicians telling Fonterra what to do or farmers to do. Farmers are quite capable of working out what they want to do. It's their livelihoods. They're very astute business people. That's ultimately their decision. Winston can have his views on what he reckons should or shouldn't happen there. I have a different set of perspective, a personal view that I actually think it's a really good thing. Actually, the margins and the profitability of a consumer goods business is infinitely lower than a food ingredients or a food service one. So actually part of the reason why Fonterra is doing so well and actually generating great returns is because of a shift in strategy, which makes much better sense. And so from my point of view, that's my personal view. I'll articulate that when I'm asked it, but at the end of the day, our views are secondary because actually the farmers matter the most. I trust our farmers. They'll make their own decision. It's their livelihoods. They're the shareholders, and they should make those calls as they should. Sorry, I'll just come here and then I'll come to you, and then we'll...
Comfortable at the moment where things are lying with unions up to Thursday? Are you happy with the negotiators on the government side, where they've got into, because it does look like you're going to be facing a large-scale strike that we haven't seen in decades.
Oh, look, I mean, I think it's absolutely tragic for the kids that have been missing out on huge amounts of school. I think for the kids that are about to go into NCA in the next 2 weeks. I think for the parents that have been mucked around. I think for the 6,000 patients that are going to have their surgeries that have been on a wait list that Labor ran up 30 times and we're trying to power through it. I think that's an incredible, a tragic thing that they want to go to strike this week. From my point of view, it's incredibly politically motivated by the unions. Let's be clear about it. If you care about it, stop the strike, get back around the table and negotiate. We did a deal just last Friday with the the primary principals union, and they came in very clear about what they wanted, clear about the trade-offs. I think both parties got a good deal off the back of that.
Your experience personally as someone who was an employer of a business large company previously, what was your techniques when it came to getting around the table with either unions or employees in trying to mitigate this large-scale strike action?
Yeah, look, I mean, I worked obviously with Teamsters unions in North America. We never had strike action there. I worked obviously my whole time at Air New Zealand. We had 42 contracts and no strike action there. A lot of it is actually working and actually highlighting the situation that the company is in and actually having good literacy from the union side as to what the performance of the organisation actually is, in this case the government. The reality is we would love New Zealand to be wealthier so we could afford more and better public services and pay our public servants more. But the reality is we are in very difficult, straitened times, thanks to Labor. You don't just go run up the debt, and you guys may or may not care about this stuff, but actually you should, as it goes from $60 billion to $180 billion. That's a $9 billion interest bill that we write off to the world each and every year. That is money that we don't get to spend on public services in this country, more schools, hospitals, teacher pay, nurses pay, all that kind of stuff. So we have to make this country wealthier in order to afford more public services. But once you acknowledge the reality that you're in, that's where you need to have good commercial literacy from the union side that understands the organisation, and vice versa. What are the things that not just always financial? We are asking quite simply for teachers to say, when you've got 12 weeks of school holidays a year, it's not unreasonable to expect that teacher-only days or professional development would happen in that time frame. That's not unreasonable. Let's have that conversation. Sorry?
Will you go and meet the strikes on?
No, I don't need to. The negotiations, the terms and conditions are done between the Public Service Commissioner doing the centralised bargaining and also the CEO of Health New Zealand, who are the employers, with the respective unions. And so I just say the unions, pull the strike on Thursday and get back around the table. We're ready to go.
Why do you think all the workers are striking?
Sorry?
Why do you think they're all striking?
I think it's deeply politically motivated. I honestly do. I think, I appreciate the unions are very close with Labor. I get it. They don't like our government. I get it. But actually, they're not serving their members well, and I don't think they're actually serving the kids, the patients, and the parents of New Zealand well.
Do you think you're exacerbating it?
Sorry?
Do you think you're exacerbating it by Judith Collins putting out that open...
I thought it was an excellent letter. Her and I talked about it before she sent it. I thought it was a fantastic letter. Yeah.
The Greens today have said that you are running, or the government is running a propaganda campaign against the unions and using the machinery of government to pay for the promotion of social media ads against the workers. What do you make of that?
Oh, what a load of rubbish.
Well, the Public Service Commission is paying for Facebook ads attacking the unions.
Well, they might be, but it's going to be a negligible amount of money. It's not, it'll be a negligible amount of money, but they're not attacking the unions. They're actually just in a world of misinformation. They'll be doing what they need to do, which is laying up their offer. We've had a situation, take the PPPTA last Friday week. Comes in, does a negotiation with the government. They ask us to put new terms together. We put those new terms together on Friday night. We say we're available to talk to you all through the weekend. Instead, they just go straight out to strike, don't even take the new offer to their members. Well, that's bad faith, right? We want to see good faith negotiations and good faith bargaining. And so whether it's that, you've had Simeon Brown. You heard it a couple of weeks ago. He said, look, the senior doctors have been negotiating with Health New Zealand for a very long time, I think over a year or so. And actually he said to both the Health New Zealand CEO and the head of the unions, why don't you actually go to binding arbitration, get an independent person to pick a number? And the union still said no. So, you got to be a bit real about this stuff, which is we have a responsibility to make sure we are doing everything we can in very difficult financial times, that we're being responsible about that. But equally, we expect them to show up and engage and not just go into strike action because it's politically motivated.
When you say it's political,
yeah.
Do you believe it's political from just union leadership who you say close to the Labour Party, or do you believe it's political from the workforces themselves, which have all voted to go on strike?
Well, I just think the unions are not serving their members well by going straight to strike. You know, like seriously, what does a union wanting to talk about Palestine have to do with educational outcomes for New Zealand kids? Seriously. I mean, you must think that's completely insane, right? I mean, why on earth? Your core mission in life is to manage your members' interests, and your core engagement with the minister should be around what are we doing around attendance, curriculum, improving academic outcomes. That's surely in the interests of a union, not the state of Palestine, for goodness sake.
Where does the difference come from, though? Because if it is politically motivated, under the Kiwi government there was minimal strikes, and that was out of the GFC. So why did they have minimal strikes? Were they just being negotiators?
Sorry?
Why was there minimal strikes? If it is politically motivated, why were there minimal strikes underneath the Sir John Key government from the unions?
I can't talk to that. What I can say is what I'm experiencing in the last 18 months is clearly, a lot of political motivation from unions that I don't think is serving the people of New Zealand well. We have outstanding nurses, doctors and teachers. We've been working hard at actually making sure we put extra learning support resource, for example, into teachers so we get more teacher aides into the education system. We've gone out and said actually we'll pay the teacher registration fees, to teachers up and down this country. We've hired 2,100 more nurses extra than what we had when we started. We've hired 600 more doctors extra than what we started with Health New Zealand. So it's not just the bargaining and the dollars and cents. It's also about the conditions and the terms and other things that we're doing as well. So there's a huge amount of investment going in across the public service to make sure that we beef up and improve the quality of our frontline service delivery. But all I'm just saying to you is the answer is not going to be strikes. The answer is actually to come back to the table, sit down, just like the primary principals did on Friday. They did a smart deal because there's no backdating of payments, and so as a result, they get every week that it goes on as another week that members of unions don't get any benefit from new contract arrangements.
Are you saying that all doctors and nurses and medical professionals and other in the public sector are all raging lefties?
No, I'm saying we deeply value them and we really appreciate the work they're doing, and that's why this government, the unions are politically motivated, but that's why we are making sure that we are investing in health and education, as you've seen in our first two budgets, and we'll continue to do so. Okay, team, thank you so much. Have a great week. See you soon.